Hey folks, welcome to our newest episode of Extreme Reloading. Here's today's plan. I'm loading a full box of ammo. I'm going to go 10 rounds of the Sierra tipped Match Kings, 5 rounds of Hornady ELD, and the balance 5 rounds of Nosler Custom Competition. Now, these are all 168 grain bullets for my .308 Winchester Ruger precision rifle. In all cases, I'm using my best Lapua brass. Now this brass, if you watched our previous videos on case sorting and brass preparation, this is some good stuff. The entire 20 cases that I'm using varies in case weight of only 1/2 grain. So we've spent a tremendous amount of time making our cases as consistent as possible. I'm using 44.5 grains of Varget powder, weighed exactly to 44.5 grains. And once again, I'm using CCI large rifle bench rest primers. So once I load all that, and before I head out to the range, I'm going to run these finished cartridges through my Hornady concentricity gauge. What I'm testing there is to make sure that my bullets aren't running out, one way or the other out of the mouth of those cases. And I'm going to make sure that I'm within 1/1000th of an inch in all instances. I just finished charging the cases, in other words, adding the powder charge to the cases, and I'm going with 44.5 grains of the Varget powder. That shot nicely, shot safely in all these cases when I was working up the load. And so now I'm ready to put in some bullets. Before I do that, in my quest for some extremely accurate ammo, I am weighing individual bullets. Now these are the Sierra tipped Match Kings 168 grain bullets. And what we see here is that they're not all 168 grains. We have 168 grains here, and I've already measured out actually 10 or 11 of those. Then we have 167.9, 167.8, 168.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. Yes, the most frequent weight is these 168s, but they're not all exactly that weight. So I'm measuring these things, weighing these. There's a 168.3. If I think about it, so we weigh the powder charge to be as accurate as possible and ensure that every case is consistent as possible, but how many folks actually weigh the bullets? Now what we're seeing is that the bullets, while they're marked as 168 grain bullets, that weight can vary at least by a few tenths up to a full 1/2 grain. So if you're really seeking that precise ammunition, consider doing it. It doesn't take very long. And I'm looking for, bullets that are exactly 168 grains. This one can't decide. There we go, 168.1. And I'm going to be loading the 168s exactly. In other cases, you might want to do 168.1 or something like that. But here's the deal. When you run your ballistic trajectories, that's going to be based on 168.0. And so when you're working up the loads and doing all your testing, and when you're going to be shooting for when it counts, let's say, then you want your 168.0 bullets in there as well. This one's a bit light. I'm going to continue until I get a bunch of Hornady bullets that are at 168.0. There's our lineup. Got the Sierra loaded on the left, Hornady in the middle, the Nosler on the right. Well, come on, let's head out to the range. We're out at the shooting range today. It's a nice spring day. It's about 62 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind is very still.
Little bit of wind. This is a gust right now at 4 miles an hour. We're typically seeing about 1 mile per hour winds. It's a great day to head out here and test these loads. What I've got is the loads that we worked up. Got these Sierras, Nosler Custom Competition, and of course the Hornady ELDs. These are all 168 grain bullets. We're going to try them out here in the Ruger Precision Rifle at 100 yards. Got the Ayler chronograph ready and all set up. I'm also going to shoot 5 rounds of factory ammo, and specifically going to be using this Norma Match 308 ammo, also using a Sierra Match King bullet, 168 grain, but this isn't the tipped bullet. This particular load shot really well in this rifle previously, also at 100 yards, so we're going to see how well it compares to these precision reloads. Well, let's get going. Let's get some time behind the trigger.
Once again, I'm firing this at 100 yards from the bench, beginning with the Norma factory ammo. That's round number 1. I'm actually firing these one at a time, loading one bullet into the mag, chambering it, firing it, and repeating that process. Now what I've also done is I've loaded a round into that magazine, and I'm checking how much 20 rounds of recoil will make on that bullet. Will the recoil really influence the bullet's placement? Now that's round number 2, and that is round number 3. Did you see that? That is 2 rounds through the same hole. Round number 4 right there, and finishing up round number 5. That was time compressed, of course. Actual time was 4 minutes 50 seconds. Second is the reloads with the Sierra tipped Match Kings, also 168 grain bullets. The third group that I'm firing is the Nosler Custom Competition at the lower right target, and the last 5-shot group is the Hornady ELDs. Now that 4th shot right there is messed up. I did something, I felt like I jerked the trigger, and sure enough, pulled it way off to the right. Well, my remote camera died after firing those 2 go rounds.
Now another experiment that I was doing out here during the same time is I was watching what the effect would be on one of these bullets that was loaded in this magazine the entire time. It's one of my Sierra tipped Match Kings, and this individual round has been in this magazine the entire time, and I measured its overall length prior to shooting, and it was 2.8105. It is 2.809. So what has happened during that time is that the recoil, even though it's a 308 Winchester, the recoil has shortened this thing. In other words, it has pushed the bullet into the case a little bit more. The result of that is, if you're loading a big old mag, 5 rounds, 20 round mags, and just shooting, you're going to end up with shorter combined overall length by the time you get to that bottom round. The result of that is going to be decreased case capacity, because this bullet is taking up that case capacity, which then will result in higher pressures and most certainly higher muzzle velocities. Something to think about when you're shooting, especially for precision. That is, of course, a major advantage of single-shot rifles, or of just shooting these rounds one at a time like I was doing today. Well, here's our target. Now it looks like we only hit 4, but this one, there's 2 holes right there. This was the Norma USA factory ammo, Did a fine job. This one here, I knew I pulled this one. I do that occasionally. We got three very nice shot, three-shot group here. This was my first round, if I remember right. Now, I think my remote camera, it looks like it died somewhere along the line, so I don't know how much it got. These are the Nosler Custom Competition. Look at that. Did a beautiful job, that three-shot group. And then these two over here, but that's a very, very nice three-shot group. I'm not sure that I pulled this one like I am sure about this one. I wasn't happy with that one right when I fired. This is the last, the Hornady. Nice two-shot group there, maybe a three-shot group, not too bad there. This was the first shot, second shot, third, fourth, fifth, something like that, as I was watching this thing. We'll calc the MOA on five-shot groups and three-shot groups and see how well they did. I'm not really disappointed in any of these, including the factory ammo right there. Nice stuff. 168 grain Sierra Match King, 168 grain tipped Sierra Match King, 168 grain Nosler Custom Competition, and 168 grain Hornady ELD. Well, I'm back in from the range, and things went fine. I was not as pleased as I hoped I would be. I was really hoping that one of these reloaded loads would just kind of knock the socks off everything. That wasn't really the case, but it's also not disappointing. None of these things did poorly. To make this kind of a fair and interesting test, I took the best factory ammo that I've ever fired out of that Ruger precision rifle. And that's that Norma USA match rifle that's shooting the 168 grain Sierra Match King. Now that's not a tipped bullet though. And this is the first time when I've pretty much put two bullets through the same hole. In fact, if I had done it any better, I probably would have simply assumed that I missed one round completely, because this really is so close to being two rounds going through the same hole. It's really fantastic. So overall, what we're seeing is that this rifle is capable of MOA or sub-MOA groups, five-shot groups even. Here we achieved sub-MOA, five-shot group here. This one, it didn't do it, and that's simply because I pulled it on this round, as I've already noted. This one is pretty much an MOA, one MOA group at five-shot, and this one again is sub-MOA. That was the Nosler bullets. The other thing we can take away from this is that this rifle just likes the Sierra 168 grain bullets. Both of the smallest groups, three-shot groups, were with those Sierra bullets. So I'm convinced I'm going to stick with those Sierras. I'm going to finish shooting the ones I have that are the Noslers. Nothing to complain about here. Certainly going to finish shooting those Hornadies, and again, there's nothing really to complain much about there as well. Just didn't do quite as good as those Sierras did. Now I shot this at 100 yards, which wasn't my original plan. What I had wanted to do was shoot at 200 yards to see even greater dispersion, kind of separate the men from the boys, if you want to call it that. I wasn't able to do that because that 200-yard range was very busy when I went out, and so I said, okay, I'm going to shoot this at 100, and that worked out okay. The other thing I want to say is that once again, I'm seeing that this temperature compensated extreme powder, the Varget, while I like that powder, I'm not so sure it's really temperature compensated. If you watched our previous video, Primers, Powder, and Bullets, Oh My, you will see that we were shooting at 34 degrees, and I was getting 2635 feet per second out of the muzzle for this Sierra tipped Match King. Well, today I was out at 60 degrees, and I got 2,855. That's 200 feet per second difference in only 30 degrees. You know, there's one thing that's still bothering me. These groups were good, they're okay, they were good, but they weren't great. So I'm wondering, why weren't they great? Well, there's a couple things we can look at.
Number one, that's me, the guy behind the trigger. And as we saw, I already messed up one of these rounds, which then kind of ruined my 5-shot group for this one. But overall, I would like to have seen these group sizes smaller than what we're seeing. So if we look at it in a very systematic way, I think we can come up with a possible or potential solution to this. First of all, I really don't think it's the cases. Those cases were crafted and prepared in such a way that the variability between cases is just tiny. Secondly, I don't think it's the bullets themselves. I weighed each individual bullet that was fired, and I tested for concentricity. Now that leaves two variables. Number one, the primers. Number two, the powder. Now the CCI bench rest primers, I've been using those things for years. And in fact, it's these same types of primers that I use in my 220 Swift, where I'm getting 6 feet per second standard deviation between my rounds. Now, I'm thinking it might be the Varget powder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try another powder. But I went out and bought me some Reloader 15. And I'm going to give this a try. Now that means I have to go back and work up the load again. I've already downloaded the recipe for it. And then I'm going to try another series of 5-shot groups with these same bullets. Thanks for watching this episode of Extreme Reloading.